What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome back to Love and Rice Podcast with your host, Antma.
I'm your other host, Christina.
And if you guys are new to this podcast, make sure you guys
Welcome.
subscribe and follow us. We are on all the podcast platforms, okay? We are talking about go subscribe on Spotify, go subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, whatever your favorite platform is. And also, we are on Instagram and TikTok, so make sure you guys follow us, comment, like, share, so we can keep doing this for you guys. Today is going to be a pretty cool episode. We are talking about the 10 lessons we learned in our 30s. And that's very important because I've done my whole 30s.
Yeah. And I think there's so many different lessons that you can learn throughout your entire life, right? But it's like actually having to pinpoint 10 that are, significant to us. I feel like it's kind of a big deal for people to know when you're transitioning to your 30s.
The amount of things you learn in your early 30s to your late 30s is incredible. Okay. So I want to talk about the 10 things that for us was the best that we've learned.
Okay.
And one thing that people never talk about, they always talk about work, careers, and things like that, right? So money is always one of the things.
Yes, that's a huge thing.
What a lot of people do, including me, was neglect retirement savings, And the reason why I bring that up as number one is because in my 30s, I already knew that my retirement savings would be difficult because I have been an entrepreneur since I was 25. So I would never have a 401k. I would never have this stuff, right? And I always try to open up more businesses and more things so I can keep saving for retirement.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference when you're an entrepreneur compared to like when you're working for a company, right? Because usually you would sign up for a 401k if you're a full-time employee.
I've never had that. Never.
That's crazy because that's been me like most of my life. So basically you're working a certain amount of hours and then you have the option where you sign up for a 401k plan and then you put in like a certain amount that you want to, right? And that goes towards your retirement. And then the cool thing with that is that your employer will match, or I think they'll like set up a percentage that they will put into that.
A max match.
Into that account, yeah. So when you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of working for yourself, it's basically up to you to like put money aside and figure out where you want to save that.
Right. So the hardest part is I'm always using my money to reinvest it back into active income and businesses, right?
And that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
So I still don't have a retirement savings as of now, right? And I think what I've learned is that I probably should have started the personal savings for myself. So like I've positioned myself enough to have businesses where in X amount of years we are building up multiple businesses. And when we sell these businesses, that is our retirement.
Right.
That's when we cash out, right? And we're good after that, like really good. But we just don't have that now because we're still building those businesses.
Yeah, because the money is basically tied in to the investments.
Right. Now, if I was the younger self, I would tell myself this, that use some of that money. We're buying stocks or buying cryptos and things like that. And I think what I would do now is the first thing before you get into stocks and cryptos and all that stuff and other businesses is buy yourself some property.
Yeah.
That's this is the last thing that we're doing is buying more properties when that I think should have been the first thing we did in our early 30s. Right? We did buy a house,
right?
But we should have continued buying and buying and buying because that as your retirement, it's like it grows X amount of years. If you need to cash out and sell the home and use the cash, sure, you can. Right?
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of the times that's not realistic for people because ideally you want to put money into a savings account, but at the same time you need the money to spend on daily expenses because the cost of living is just so much now. So it's kind of hard to be able to invest in multiple properties and then be able to pay for schooling, food, housing, and all of these things.
There's strategic ways, when you own a business and you feel like you deserve things, you start buying stuff, right? You start getting new cars, you start getting other things. Um, and like, imagine if for the 20 years I've owned businesses, I just drove the exact same Honda Accord the whole time.
Yeah,
I
and you didn't.
probably would have, had enough for a down payment on a rental.
True. Yeah.
Something simple like that. Giving up something so you can, create your foundations. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing, the biggest lesson I've learned is, creating your foundations early in your 30s, so it doesn't get to a rat race in your late 30s.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to retirement and savings, like for me, I've always had it ingrained in my mind where as soon as I started working, I would always just save my money and be conservative. And that's why I'm very practical and more careful with how I spend my money, right? Because I'm like, I need to save money, put it to the side, and not spend it in case something happens, like in case of an emergency. In case I wanted to start a family. And this was when I was like 18, right? So I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, I'm saving up for something, but I don't know what yet. So I'm just gonna just hold on to that money and see what happens with that. But I think when you're in your 20s, maybe approaching like your early 30s, it's starting to look into things that you can invest in, or like having a savings account where you can build
Man,
interest on that, or like a CD.
if we can do that in our 18s, in our teens, that would have been great.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, that's true. Because you already know to like save money, right? So maybe you can save that money and put it to the side for now. But then the difficult part is trying to figure out where you want to invest it, what will help you get the most
Hmm.
interest, and what if you need the money, right? So there's always like penalties and things like that. So I don't know. I would suggest like looking into those things and where you would want to start putting your money.
It's funny because when we're younger, we always think we're okay because there's like social security and like government helping. And then as we got older, they're like, yeah, we've run out of those funds and
Yeah,
you're
we
not
don't,
going to
we
get
don't
it,
get that anymore, which is
And that's when
crazy.
you're like, oh crap. Like now you're
Yeah,
panicking, right?
pretty
So like
much. Yeah.
this kind of leads into number two, which is nothing lasts forever,
Yeah,
So
that's true.
um, when we say nothing lasts forever, if the social security stuff doesn't last forever, right? So you got
Yeah.
to figure out your life, your future. And then in your 30s, you start finding out friendships don't last forever.
Mm-hmm.
Careers don't last forever. Um,
Just situations in general and circumstances, like nothing lasts forever.
why do you think that is? Because it's like in your early, is it, do you blame yourself for those?
Mm,
Because when you start these friendships, when you start relationships, careers, you're always like, gung ho, all in, uh, friends forever,
yeah.
family forever,
I
right?
think because ever since you're a kid, like that's what you've that was just the way of living, right? You're always like, oh, I need to have these friendships and have it forever. Like we're BFFs and all this stuff, right?
Hmm.
You go like 1,000% into your friendships, and I feel like as you get older, I think even in my 20s, I was like, oh man, like we've been friends for so long. I don't want to lose these friendships. Like it seemed like it was almost getting out of a relationship when you're trying to end friendships. But I think once I got into my 30s, I didn't really blame myself for losing friendships because at the end of the day, you have these friendships that are meant to be a part of your life forever, for however long. But over time, you kind of either you outgrow each other, you guys have different aspirations. Some people move away,
Hmm.
like you just have different interests and stuff now. So it's kind of like you don't really have anything in common anymore, or you might not
I
agree on
think
things like you used to.
like in your 20s, you have so much in common because all you're doing is working and partying,
Yes.
right? And you're like, you're dating. And so it's a lot of fun stuff where it's like you need friends to go on,
It's
like
it's
groups of friends to go on dates with, activities with, and stuff,
it's more
right?
for socializing and decompressing from
Right.
your work life and everything else and family
And
stress.
in your 30s, you start growth, like
Yeah.
real growth, personal growth. That includes like you're starting a family, right? You got married, you're having kids. You don't have time for friends because you're so focused on your kids, right?
Yeah.
And that's one reason why nothing lasts forever with friends, because now you got different priorities. They've shifted,
Yeah,
you
everyone has
know?
different paths. And I think when you're actually in your 30s, that's when your career really can take off. And that's like when you actually have more an idea of what you want to do.
Yeah, I think in your 30s, like with your career stuff, it's we start figuring out, okay, we're really good at this thing and we actually enjoy this thing, and you start like changing your career to that, right? Before that, it was more of like you've learned skills, you do jobs here and there. Maybe some people have careers of like going to nursing school and things like that, but you start to find out in your 30s what actually is something you love and actually makes you a lot of money. You know how many nurses there are that have gone to school for 6 years or so, and then that's what they're doing in their mid 20s, and then once they hit their 30s, they're like, you know what, I love real estate, or I
Yeah.
love owning a business.
Well, I mean,
You know,
that happened to me pretty much, right? Because in my 20s, I was already in the corporate world and I was working full time, 9 to 5 job. And like I had a good position and I was getting paid pretty well. But when I hit my 30s, that was when I realized, like, you know, I know I put in a lot of years and time into my career and this is what I went to school for. But now the passion and drive to do it was not there anymore,
hmm,
and that was like literally when I hit my 30s and stuff.
right?
So going back to like nothing lasts forever, like really you in your 20s you're like, okay, I'm working so hard to get into this career, this is what I want to do, this is my life goal, right? That's all you see.
Yeah,
And then once you get into your 30s you're like, okay, well, maybe this isn't for me, maybe I want to try something else, like you're saying with the nurse and like real estate. And I think that's okay.
hmm,
And that's not what we were raised to know, because our parents were like, just get that steady job, have it for the rest of your life, get benefits, you're good for your whole life, right? But now times have changed
yeah,
and it's okay.
yeah. I think that's one of the hardest things was knowing that you're meant to do something, or you're trying so hard to do something and you've achieved it, and then you're like, you know what, this is actually not what I want, you
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
So it's nothing lasts forever mentality is like you don't learn it till you go through that hardship and you're like refiguring yourself out in your 30s.
Yeah. And I think even for us too, when it comes to like relationships and friendships, I feel like we have those strong friendships that have been around for so long.
Hmm.
And that's why it's important to continue to invest in those friendships when you feel like it's still worthwhile to you. You know what I mean? But at the same time, in our 30s, we actually have experienced a loss of friendships that we've had for a long time as well,
Hmm.
because we've just outgrown each other, and our cross just didn't pass anymore. So it's kind of
Yeah,
crazy. You would think
our
like
crossing paths
our
anymore.
paths didn't cross anymore. Yeah, it's just crazy because like you can be friends for so long with people, and you envision yourself like being friends for the rest of your lives, but then things happen and
What I learned is you have to learn to let go.
yeah.
If there are more important things than to be thinking about things that don't work or trying to make things work when you really don't care, or
Yeah, it's
you
like
know,
not for trying not to force things
right?
because it doesn't serve you anymore. Like
Like
what's the point?
we don't. Well, I think in our early 30s we probably had the best group of friends, the
Mhm.
best
Yeah,
people to hang out with.
right.
We were all thriving, we're all growing. And then now in your late 30s, it's like your family is growing. So
Mhm.
you stop talking to the people, and so as your family grows, and that's more important. And then when things happen with friends, it's like now do you need to force it? You know,
Yeah.
do you need to force relationships? Do you need to force friendships? Do you need to force careers? You don't need to force anything at all anymore. So everyone who's listening to this podcast and they're kind of like thinking about making shifts, whether it's a shift in relationship or a shift in your career, this is the time to do it. You know, it's never too late. Don't ever think it's too late.
Yeah.
Like you can make the change, and if it's gonna make you happy, make the shift, make those
Yeah.
adjustments.
Yeah, because I think in my 20s it was always like trying to uh go the extra mile to make these relationships and friendships work. And then now it's like in your 30s, you're like, I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I'm not going to go out of my way to do stuff for you, especially if
If
like,
they're not going to do the same, and if they don't care like you care, then
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
But also, you
You
might
know?
not agree with like the fact that people change, whether it's for the
And that's
better or the
fine.
worse. And, you know, you just
You just gotta let go.
pretty
You
much,
know.
yeah.
But when there are friends and new friends or old friends that are giving you the same efforts, those are the ones that you should continue. You
Yeah.
know.
So it's
But it's just
reevaluating.
reevaluating who is putting in efforts for
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
Yep.
That's all. You
Yep.
know. Um, and so the next one is this is people say this all the time, but no one really accepts this one, and that is health.
Yeah.
Health is so important in your
Health is
30s.
wealth.
You know, I think a lot of people they always work out, trying to get buff, they're trying to look good. And um, I think we get it twisted, you know, because in our early 30s, we're like, man, we are grown adults. We're lifting crazy stuff. This is the most we've ever done. We're hitting our peak potentials, right? For weightlifting.
Yeah.
And so we're always in our mind, it's like, damn, we look good, right? And actually, that's not what we mean by health. We mean like the stuff inside, internally. You got to take care of those things, you know. Um, my dad said this to me. It was something along the lines of like, if you eat bad, it becomes bad for you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like what you eat is what you become type of thing. And so, you know, if we eat too much sugary stuff, you're going to have diabetic problems. If you're going to have too much oily foods, you're going to have cholesterol problems. If you're not going to eat enough vegetables, you have digestive problems. You know, so like you have to treat your body good. You got to get these nutrients, you got to eat good, and you know, things like that. So that's a big one I've learned.
Yeah, especially definitely, especially for you, and I think that's more in like recent times too. Because I feel like when you're in your 20s, you think you're invincible, right? You think you can do anything. You can party, you can go without sleep, you can eat junk food, you won't get fat or gain weight and stuff.
Because you're also really active in your 20s.
Yeah, and you have faster metabolism. So then once you get into your 30s, like you start to notice like you might still have the same eating habits. And then you're like, well, why is my waist getting bigger? Or why am I gaining weight? And then you kind of just I started to realize like I need to eat better because as we get older, our bodies are not as strong,
Hmm.
right? And it's harder for us to fight infections, illnesses, and other things. So it's like I don't know, like what you eat, what you do physically, it kind of ties into like your mental state too, which is another important aspect of like health is wealth and taking care of yourself.
I think that's why it's important, you know, in your early 30s or your 20s, when I hear yoga,
Yeah.
I laugh at it. You know what I mean? When I hear people meditating or doing those type of fitness for your mind, I laugh at it, you know? And now when you're in your late 30s and you're trying to thrive in business and success and trying to, you know, do things, you need clarity in your mind. You need to be at peace. And a lot of that is to have a good health, a good diet, a good exercise, good lifestyle, you know, get your heart pumping. And so clarity in your mind helps with your success and with your growth, you know? And so things like yoga, things like Tai Chi, all the things that old people do, like that's actually gold, you know?
Yeah, when I would try to go to yoga classes,
Is it all old
when I was
people?
younger, no. So when I used to go when I was younger, I used to like feel awkward when I would try to be in like
Why?
yoga classes because I'd be sitting there and then because you have to close your eyes and you have to focus, you have to clear your mind. And when I was like in my 20s, I'm like I can't do that because I have so many things going on in my mind, right? So
Hmm.
then I feel awkward. I'm like trying to close my eyes, but it's like constantly just moving because I want to open it. I just don't like like having it closed. And then you look around and everyone's just like in their own world,
Hmm.
right? And yeah, it wasn't until my 30s where I was like, okay, like this is actually really helpful and kind of cool because as you get older, you have so many things that
it's
you have to
it's
that you stress about.
you said that in your 20s you would try to close your eyes and you have so many things to think about, but when you reach your 30s you have even more shit to
You
think
have more shit
about,
to think
but
about,
you're
but
able to open up and
I
let
think
it in.
because you're more tired,
Oh.
because like you can't, the way that you cope with stress is completely different. So it's like you're allowing yourself to actually take it in now and actually allow yourself to relax, because when you're younger, you're like, oh, go, go, go mentality. I'm going to sit here and
Mm-hmm.
do nothing. Like there's so many things I got to do.
Yeah.
But when you're like in your 30s, you're like, okay, well, I'm tired. Okay, this is kind of cool. Let's try
Yeah.
to figure out what they're saying and take it all in. And I think that's like a pretty important thing too, whether it's meditating or just finding some kind of like fitness class to take
I
in.
I would say 60% is working on mental health
Mm-hmm.
and 40% is working on your body.
Well, I I don't, well, I mean, I wouldn't put a number on it, but I would say like they are interconnected.
I'm when I put the number on it, what I mean is that I would prioritize clarity in the mind, which to me includes diet and some lifestyle fitness and like um that I don't know, the mental health is more important to me than working out. But
Yeah, well,
but I would spend the time to go walk around or doing those things where it's like light work.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's why I would say it's interconnected. I would say it's probably like equal, because what you
Mm.
do to your body is what affects your mental health,
Yeah,
right?
no,
So
that's
if you're
true.
eating well and exercising and taking care of your physical health, that will help you with your mental health as well.
Right.
So it kind of like ties into each other.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people think about that. Like honestly, your mental health is
Yeah.
important. It's huge.
So, within this health category, it's more of really prioritizing yourself and taking care of yourself, scheduling things for yourself and blocking out time so you can do that. Really take care of yourself.
And one thing I'm going to say is, because I see this all the time, like, yeah, we can say, okay, block out time, whatever, right? But like actually doing it, because you're so busy at this point in your life. And I know like you're thriving, you're doing all these things, but like you have to set that time to take care of yourself, because there's always going to be reasons where you're like, well, I got to do this. This is more important. Like this is more of a priority. But actually, like you're the only one that's going to be taking care of yourself.
Hmm.
Like no one's going to go on these walks for you. No one's going to take care of your mental health. No one's going to help you with your diet and stuff like that.
You
So it's
know,
like having to commit to it and actually do it and put yourself first.
something that I never imagined. I've worked so hard my whole life to make, as I get older, easier for myself,
Yeah.
right? That's why I've been grinding so much, because I wanted to get easier and easier as I get older. And what's really happening here is shit. I'm like,
Shit.
I'm 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 at I am working the hardest I've ever worked right now. I am
Yeah.
doing the most I've ever done right now. But I think it's because it's my choice and my decision.
Yep.
Because I'm trying. I think that a lot of things I did in my 30s, I didn't do right. It was slow. I was getting there. I was trying to figure things out, and now that I've figured it out, I'm trying to to uh to pick up the pace and really do it faster.
Mm,
And so that's why right now I am like really, really busy. But it's like I can see where it's gonna take us.
yep.
So
But remember, stress kills. So it's like, yeah. If I gotta be the nagging wife and be like, hey, let's do this 10-minute walk real quick, like we're just gonna have to do it, and you can't, you have to suck it up, and you can't get mad at me for doing it, because me doing that is me trying to take care of you. So have a partner that's gonna hold you accountable and make sure that they're not gonna give you shit about it.
you always say, I don't know what to get you for Father's Day, for your birthday, for Christmas. I'm like, if you don't get me a treadmill this year,
Yeah, no,
you know what I
that was
mean?
the first thing that popped up in my head. I already know.
Dude,
Yeah. Because I know you're very specific about things that you want, but we had this conversation where I was like, are you going to get it? Because I see these all the time, but like now I know what you want. So now I can figure it out and just help you do it.
I
Yeah.
mean, you already know I just want like things are gonna last and the best of the best.
The best. That's it. The
If we're
best of the
gonna,
best.
the top. What are the top three things?
Yeah.
And like
Okay.
start doing research.
Yep.
But don't take your health for granted.
Nope.
Because when you're in your 30s, you have enough energy, enough power to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, the next thing, number 4, would be you have in your 30s. You've now learned so many traits and skills, learned so much about yourself. This is where you get to embrace how unique you are.
Mm-hmm.
Embracing your uniqueness. In your 20s, you're always a little bit shy, you're scared, you're still breaking out of your shell. And in your 30s, you really find out how special you are and how unique you are. The sooner you can embrace that, the easier life is.
Yeah, because I feel like you live your whole life comparing yourself to other people.
Or trying to figure out what you're, like who you are.
That's true. Like I feel like
and you actually already know.
Yeah, I feel like my whole life I'm trying to figure out who I am, but at the same time it's like my parents, my crazy Asian parents, like comparing me to other people and cousins and siblings and trying to, that's just the toxic thing that they've always done, right? So you start to question your own worth and you're like, well, I'm not working this kind of job. I don't have my career decided on yet in my whatever age it is. Like, what am I doing with my life? So it's kind of like, just stop questioning yourself with whatever stage you are in your life, because every time you second guess things, it's like, I don't know.
The moment you stopped working in the corporate world and we started doing social media, creating content and stuff, we found out how unique that was in our circle,
right?
Like with our family, with our friends. Like, we're the only ones who do that, right? And that is a uniqueness, and that is something that we need to embrace. Our whole 30s, the last 10 years, we were creating content.
Yeah.
And I don't think one point we really embraced it. We just kept doing it. Now, if you actually embraced it and understanding that that is unique and that is something you're good at, imagine the effect that will cause for you.
Yeah, well, I think we did experience it at some point, but it's like with working any other job where if you're doing something for so long, there comes a point where you kind of burn out a little bit, right?
But there's other ways to do it.
Right. But
like you really have to figure out what makes you unique.
Yeah.
I don't think me knowing how to do everything is something that's unique. Like a jack of all trades, that's not unique. A lot of people can do that. What makes me unique is like being able to figure things out and doing things, like having that, like certain skills that makes things more unique.
Yeah, you know what? Something that stands out to me that you do is that you always come up with these crazy ideas, like ever since I've met you. And sometimes they might sound so extreme. Like you always have these ideas that you're trying to pitch to me, right? And then I'm always like the conservative one. I'm like, I don't know, that's just how I am. But usually they say that the most successful people are the ones that have that trait where it's like they'll come up with all these ideas, whether it's crazy or not, and they actually do it. Like they do something about it. So that's something that I feel like you've always done, where once you have that idea, as crazy as it sounds, you'll be like, all right, I'm gonna act on it. And then if I fail, that's okay. Like that's just another stepping stone. I'm just gonna try something else or do something else. So yeah. And I feel like a lot of people don't do that because they're scared of failing. And that's something that you kind of learn in your 30s, that it's okay.
Because I failed so much. So this is the good thing about being a bad student at school. When you're a bad student in high school, bad student in college, I failed college. It's you've done so much failing that you learn that it's okay, and that's why I can always keep going and adjust.
Yeah. I mean, I almost failed at school, right? Like I tried so hard because I prioritized my career over school, and when push came to shove, like I was very fortunate to be able to get back into school and actually get my degree. But I felt like I was failing at that point in my
Mm-hmm.
life because it was so hard. And I thought that it was the end of the world. There was nothing I could do about it.
Because you never really failed. You're like, can you imagine someone who gets straight A's, gets into Ivy League college, and then does their career and then hates it, or they have so much money they start investing in stocks and lose their money, and like
Yeah.
now the disappointment that they've never learned through their life of achievements,
Yeah,
and it destroys them, you know?
pretty much. Yeah. And going back to this point, I would say having self-compassion is very important. So be kinder to yourself, accept yourself for who you are. If there's something you don't like about yourself, like do something to change it and improve it, but don't dwell on it.
Yeah,
And
that's the next thing is like
yeah.
you know, um embracing who you are, like who you're
Mhm.
meant to be. You find that out in your 30s. So if you need to act on that,
Yeah.
right? So it's like if I know I fail all the time, I can go into a really bad mental state and get depressed and be like, I'm this loser, I can't do it all. But actually, I use it to push myself to get to the next step and the next level every time, right? And that's very unique. And being able to um, finding out what you're meant to be, that's where this all comes from,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
sometimes you might not even figure that out in your 30s. Like it just happens when it's meant to happen. But yeah, going back to the way that you treat yourself, think think of treating yourself like the way you treat your friends and your family, right? You're always giving them grace, you're always kinder to them. So just remember to do that for yourself too, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so for the next one, what number are we on now? Number 5?
Something like
Something
that.
like that. Okay. I think this is a huge one and
For a lot of moms.
for a lot of moms, and it's losing your identity.
Yeah, why is that?
Because I feel like I have had my own identity for so long, for most of my life.
Like
Up,
like what does that even mean? Like who were you before being a mom, and then who are you now to be able to say I've lost my identity?
well, I think it's more of like before having kids, I got to focus on myself more, and there was more time to be able to do things that I wanted, to just focus on myself. Like if I wanted to take classes to learn different things, like I could just do it and not have to think about
But
it.
you can.
No, but there's a difference. Well, so like you had the freedom and the time and the energy to do all these things, and then you have your career and everything else. And then I think for me personally, like when I had the kids, you know, I still had my career, but after a while with all of the traumatic experience that I had with my work, and I'm not saying that this is the experience for other people. It could be, but you know, I had to like leave my career and put it on pause pretty much because my identity now became it went from being a married woman to being a mom. So it's kind of like shifting who I was to now make this my new identity because I had more responsibilities.
And how did that affect your identity?
I mean, in the beginning, while they're still younger, I was embracing it because I loved being a mom and I loved everything that I was doing and being able to put that work aside and focus on the kids like 1,000%. Because I think in the beginning it was harder for me because when we had our first kid, I was still working and I felt like I was missing out on so much. And I came to that turning point where I was like, do I stay at this job that I'm not happy in and keep my career? Because you know that once you put your career on pause and you take this break, it's kind of hard to go back into it because now, like, say if I wanted to still be in HR, right? I would have to go back and apply. And one thing that you learn about HR is that you're screened by your resume. And I know when I was working at that time, like when I would see resumes come in and I would see like moms most likely, and which I didn't understand at the time. It's like, why is there this like few years gap of not working?
Hmm.
And that's usually something that companies look at and they're like, oh, well, this person hasn't been working for this many years. And I think at that time too, people didn't really give you grace when it came to that,
Mm-hmm.
because people weren't like, okay, well, yeah, you're at home being a mom, like kudos to you. Now we're gonna choose you over other people who have been continually working, to come back into the field. So I think that affected me because I had this new identity, and then it's like trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? Because, like you said, nothing lasts forever. I always thought I was going to be in HR. I thought this was going to be my career for the rest of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and now everything's changed, and I'm like, okay, I'm a mom. The kids are at school now. What should I do next? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like just you're putting your life on hold at one point, and then now you go through this phase of being a mom, and then after that you're like, okay, what next? I've been home for so long, and I think a lot of moms don't talk about this because you're at home, you're not
Was
out socializing with people and meeting new people, and
I okay? From a different perspective, okay, I understand this thing with you and moms who lose their identity because they became the stay-at-home mom and they're doing everything that they want with their kids. Now, from my perspective, I see it as a choice you made. You made the decision and the choice to stay at home with the kids, to not join Facebook groups, to not have a side job, to not meet other moms, to not do something on the side to for yourself. So the parts about losing identity is was made from a choice, because you can still do things if you wanted to.
yeah, I mean, easier said than done. Like we were still doing our social media stuff. Like I
That
didn't.
was an identity too.
True, but it kind of, well, I guess our situation was very unique because that type of work also tied into being a mom, right? So it's like my identity
Right.
being in social media was as a mom, but also at home
That
as a
that
mom.
there's the part of embracing your uniqueness, that you
Yeah.
didn't embrace.
And that was exactly because I think for the longest time I was like, oh man, I want to go back to my old identity and my old account. Like I fought so hard, and you know this. I fought so hard about not just being a mom on social media, and I fought it for so long. And I think now, like, I've actually came into terms where I was like this is actually who I am, and how come I didn't embrace it, and why did I see it as such a negative thing?
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while to understand it. And yeah, just going back to like embracing myself and my uniqueness, because our situation is unique.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I regret not doing that sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, losing your identity it happens. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think it's a choice.
Yeah, everything's a choice. But then as a mom also, you're prioritizing everything else
That's
to
the
take
choice
care
you
of
made.
everyone else, just like you're
Yep.
prioritizing everything else, but to take care of yourself.
Right. It's the
So
choices that I'm making.
yeah, it doesn't just apply to moms and stay-at-home moms. I think it applies to everyone, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
everyone does that.
And I think that's what this episode is about, is really figuring out what are the right choices to make, what you need to take care of. And it always comes down to taking care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we're learning here. So, you know, the next couple of things is we got stop trying to do everything, right?
Yes, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. I know we can do it all, right? But it really slows down everything else in your life if you try to do everything. The more you can delegate, the easier your life will be. And I totally understand. Most people don't have money to be able to delegate things,
Right.
And so sometimes you got to sacrifice losing money to delegate, or getting more people to help you and delegate to them, who are your family or friends and whatnot, So there's got to be something, some way for you to be able to stop doing everything, or even to think about, like for me, I do 9 different things, right? 9 businesses. And I can tell you they're all really important. But if I had to choose to drop one and really think about it, I can drop one. I really can, right? And so if you think about what can you do to stop everything, like, you just got to sit back and ponder on that,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be surprised that you can actually let go of everything.
I don't know if I've ever heard you use the word ponder before.
It's not a big word.
It's not a big word, but
The fuck?
see, that's the end. I know, but that was so funny. I was like, ponder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I used it correctly. Yes,
No,
yes. What's
I'm not making fun of the way you use it. I'm just saying I don't think I've ever heard you use that word before.
does that turn you on or what?
No, it just threw me
Like,
off guard. I was like, what ponder? Like, wow. No,
all
but
right.
I think because we're having such a serious conversation that I think it was very appropriate.
Um, the other okay. Here's a big one. Um, in my early 30s, your younger sister, your nephews, your nieces, they would say, "Wow, you're 30. You're old." Right? And from that stigma, it becomes like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to get old. I don't want to age." And now let's start using face creams. Let's start being more active. Let's listen to more music. Let's be trendy and whatnot. And you know, aging is not a bad thing. With
Yeah.
aging comes wisdom and
Growth.
certain leaps that you never knew you could take.
Yeah.
You know, um, and so and different perspectives, which is huge.
Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty important thing. But I also feel like it's harder for women to accept aging than it is for
Right.
men.
Because all you do is think about your body, right? Because in your teens and your 20s, women are flaunting their bodies. Like, man, I got nice boobs, nice face. I'm skinny. I can wear this bikini, and so you're thinking that for the next 20 years of your life, and all of a sudden your body starts
You
changing,
change.
right?
Yeah.
And what and so your confidence starts changing and stuff. But women, like for me as the male, I have understood the growth in my mind and how powerful it is. And I think if you guys were to think about that and think about how much your mind has grown, that is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it all comes down to like societal pressures too. And I think there's something I've always heard like growing up, like, oh, men age like fine wine. But then there's this stigma of women, like if you're older, you look older, like that's not acceptable and all these things.
But
And
what do men do to look better? They change their diet and they do fitness. They change their
yeah,
lifestyle around, right? And that's why they start looking better. But women, they just start putting all this shit on. They start doing all these things like for their body, like massages and whatnot. And it's just you just gotta change your lifestyle.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think people are just more judgmental about women and how they look and stuff because I've always grown up having people not compliment, but make comments about my appearance, right? But like for the most part, I don't think people make comments about guys' appearances, right? Like, and
They
you've
do.
experienced this though, like with us and our kids, right? It's always oh, these are your kids. Oh my gosh, your daughter's so beautiful and da da da. Always commenting about appearance, and
Hmm.
that's stuff that sticks with us growing up, knowing that we're being judged by our appearance and people make comments about it, and it starts at such a young age. But
I
for
mean,
boys it's like they don't really say anything.
yeah, they do. It's like I mean, my whole life I've heard, "Oh, what a cute kid! What a cute boy! He's handsome." I hear that my whole time, so it's not just girls and women.
Yeah, but I want to say for the most part, like we always get commented on the way that we look, and I think that's why the pressure of wanting to look
Oh no, I was a cute little boy, and everyone said how cute I
yeah,
was
what
when I
happened?
was. You married me because I was so cute.
You were. I'm just
God
kidding.
damn.
I'm just kidding. No, but yeah, seriously though, it's like I think it's coming to terms and understanding that aging is a privilege, honestly, because how many people don't get to age and get to that age, and yeah, that's something I try to take in and stuff, even though I'm like, oh no, but also like I'm fortunate to be able to, yeah, be here.
All right, so we got two more here, and one of them is it's okay to not have everything figured out.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who figure things out in their 40s, in their 50s. I mean, everyone's different. Yeah, some people figure things out in their 20s, but it's okay. It's okay. We're all different, and it's normal.
Yep.
Is the main thing. It's normal.
Yeah, you might think that you have something figured out at a certain point in your life, and then something happens that completely changes it. So it's like adapting to it and understanding that, yeah, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
gonna happen. Nothing lasts forever.
hmm
Yep.
And the last thing is, this is the most important actually. Gratitude is everything.
Yes.
To be grateful for your life, grateful for what you have, the journey you've been on, all of that is so important. Because that will allow you to succeed more in life once you realize everything that you have.
Yeah, and this one ties into everything that we've talked about, because having the right mindset and being grateful for everything that you have and not comparing yourself to others, like that makes like the ultimate change.
Um, yeah. Gratitude when you're young helps with growth. Gratitude when you're old helps with peace,
Yeah.
and it's just full circle that it just helps with everything. So, I know people tell you guys this all the time. You read it all the time on social media to be grateful for everything. And everyone's just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I am. But to practice it in terms of putting 10 to 15 minutes away for yourself to privately think about the things you're grateful for. You have to practice these things,
Yeah, or maybe it's like journaling, right? Like writing a list of things that you're grateful
right?
for.
Whether it's every morning or every night,
Or there's like a gratitude jar. That's something I've always wanted to do before. So it's
what's a
like
gratitude
you
jar?
set a jar to the side and you call it a gratitude jar. And you're supposed to write something that you're grateful for at the end of the day, and then you put that into the jar. So then
And
it's
then
like
what?
maybe a year comes around, you open that jar, you read everything that you're grateful for again, kind of like a reminder
Mm,
of all the things you're grateful for every day.
I see.
Yeah. Um
You know what? I think I do want to buy a gratitude journal.
mm,
So every day I can write X amount of things I'm grateful for.
yeah. I mean,
They
yeah,
sell
just
those on
having a
Amazon.
journal.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a journal of writing things out, like your thoughts, your feelings, how you felt at certain times, current situations. So it's good to be able to reflect back on it.
Yeah. I think once you're able to practice this more, I've been practicing it for the last, I don't know, 6 months. Right. And I want to keep practicing and do more and more and more. And just because it makes me feel good, it makes me a better person. And so once you can practice it, it will help you too.
Yeah. And I follow a horoscope news. Well, I get a horoscope newsletter every day, and then actually one of my more recent ones that came in was saying that I should practice gratitude more, and it was saying things like trying to do more for others than I do for myself. And I think that's something that's actually pretty helpful, because you can say it and be like, okay, well, I'm grateful for this in my mind, but once you're doing something else, you forget. So
I tell you that all the time too.
what?
To help, let's help people more.
Yeah, yeah. So but we're always just so busy, and we try to, and then
Well,
things
we
come up.
do, right?
Yeah, we do.
But like there's more that we can do to help
Right.
people.
Yes. Yes. So it's like tapping into that, because when you do stuff like that, whether it's donating stuff, going to volunteer at places or whatever it is, it's the feeling that you get from doing it. So then that helps you actually see how less fortunate other people are, and like being there to actually help and make feel like you're making a difference is actually what helps you with your gratitude as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like everyone is put on earth to make the world a better place, and helping each other is one way of doing that.
Yep.
People forget that because we just think about the things we need to do as we're pursuing whatever it is.
Or trying to be
And
competitive with each other when actually we should be helping each other.
yeah,
Yep.
yep. People always say like, you know, um, why are you competing in products if you're starting a business,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or even why is this person copying me, copying you? And it's like, why is that even a thought,
Yeah,
right?
it's
It
like
should be helping each other get to the next level.
yeah, it's like having
It's weird.
yeah, it's like being in toxic friendships where it's like you constantly feel like someone's competing with you or trying to like one up you all the
That's
time.
already not a real
Yeah,
friendship. So
I've
that just
learned.
um
It took me a long time. But
practicing gratitude will just help you realize that helping people is a good thing.
yeah.
And whenever people are doing things, um, it's free for us
Hmm.
to show support and respect and whatever it is that people need to be uplifted. So, yeah, let's all help each other out. Take care of yourselves. And those are my takeaways from this episode. What's your takeaway?
Um I mean I feel like I've kind of said everything, but yeah, I think
If you had one takeaway from this,
one takeaway from this is that nothing is permanent. Whatever you're going through, you'll figure it out no matter how difficult it is. Yeah, you'll always find a way, and just because you haven't figured yourself out at whatever point in your life, you'll find a way.
I have another one. Um, Life gets better. People always think, man, I got married, I have kids, my life is over. There's nothing left for me to do. I'm gonna tell you right now, life gets better
And it gets better if only you make it better.
if you
You
do it
have to
right.
do something
You
about
gotta
it.
take
Yep.
care of yourself.
Yep.
And yeah.
That's it. Take
All
care of
right,
yourself.
guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I loved it. Comment down below what takeaways you have from lessons you've learned in your 30s. We would love to hear them as well. Make sure you guys follow and subscribe on all podcast platforms, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And we'll catch you guys next time on the next episode of Love and Rice.